I'm Eleanor. I'm 32, and yes, my own parents sued me for buying a house. My house, my name, my money. I know how that sounds. It sounds impossible, but I lived it. After 12 years of night shifts, skipped holidays, and counting every dollar, I finally bought a home. Not a mansion, just a simple place I could call mine. When I told them I expected joy. Oh, we're proud of you. A hug. Instead, I got silence, then questions, then court papers. Because in their eyes, this home didn't belong to me. It was meant for my sister Samantha. She didn't earn it. She never tried. But they believed she deserved it. They said I was being selfish. But tell me, how is it selfish to want to keep what you built with your own hands? That's how it started. But not how it ends. I worked double shifts for years, skipped vacations, missed birthdays, lived in a tiny apartment with secondhand furniture, all to save every cent, every dollar. While Samantha, my younger sister, still lived in our parents' basement. No job longer than a few months, no savings, no plans, but she had charm. She always had charm. She smiled, cried at the right time, and somehow always got what she wanted. When I was 12, I folded laundry. She spilled juice, laughed, and got a hug. In high school, I worked weekends. She switched hobbies every month. They called her free-spirited. They called me responsible. One needed help, the other would be fine. So when I finally got approved for a mortgage, I didn't expect drama. Just maybe a congrats. Instead, my mom asked 3 bedrooms for just you, my dad said. That's a lot of space. They weren't happy. They were planning. For her, not for me. I invited them over. Mom, Dad, and Samantha. I cooked, set the table, borrowed folding chairs from a friend, hung a little home sweet home sign by the door. It felt cheesy, but it felt like mine. The house echoed, still empty, but full of hope. They arrived on time. Samantha looked bored. Mom smiled tightly. Dad walked through each room like a real estate agent. You'll need to update the kitchen, Mom said. Yard looks like work, Dad added. Samantha barely spoke until she saw the bedrooms. 3 rooms, must be nice. Her voice was flat, cold, like I'd taken something that belonged to her. We sat for dinner. I tried to talk about their garden, her hobbies. She said she might become an influencer. Halfway through, Dad put down his fork. Ellie, we need to talk about this house. My hand stopped. Something in his voice shifted the air in the room. I looked at him, confused, cautious. What about it? I asked. He glanced at Mom. She gave a soft nod. Then he said it. We think this was a selfish decision. I blinked. Selfish? I worked 12 years for this. Mom reached for my hand. We always thought you'd help secure Samantha's future. Samantha chimed in. I'm still figuring things out. She smiled like this was reasonable, like this was fair. Dad continued, maybe the house could be in both your names, or something more family-minded. I felt my stomach turn. This wasn't a suggestion. It was an expectation. You wanted me to buy a house for her, I asked, voice shaking. With my money, Mom said, not for her, with her in mind. Dad added, family takes care of family. I looked at the faces around the table, and suddenly none of them felt like home. I stayed calm, or tried to. I've been saving for years, I said, living small, skipping everything, for this. Meanwhile, I looked at Samantha. You've lived rent-free with no plan, no job. Her voice rose. That's not fair. Not everyone can be perfect like you. Perfect. This wasn't perfection. This was exhaustion. Sacrifice. Being responsible isn't a flaw, I said. It's how I survived. How I built this. Dad's face tightened. You've always been selfish with your success, Mom added. Your sister needs stability, Samantha whispered. You'd be fine in an apartment. I stared at them. They truly believed I owed her this, because I could. But I didn't build this house for guilt. I built it for peace, and suddenly I saw it. They weren't just asking, they were laying a claim on something I earned, alone. You want me to pay the mortgage, I said slowly, while Samantha lives here for free silence. The kind that screams louder than words. Dad pushed his plate away. You're being cruel. Sam has artistic gifts. She just hasn't found her path yet. I'm not cruel, I said. I'm just tired of being the only one expected to give. Sam's eyes filled with tears. Real or not, I couldn't tell anymore. You've always thought you're better than me. I looked at her. No, I think we made different choices, and now we're living different outcomes. Mom's voice cracked. So that's it. You're just keeping it all. I'm keeping what I worked for, I answered. That's not selfish. That's survival. Dinner ended in a storm. Raised voices, slamming doors, and me alone in the house that no longer felt like a home. They left without a goodbye. Just the echo of footsteps and slammed wood, half-eaten food on the table, champagne still unopened. I washed the dishes in silence, hands moving, mind racing. Tears came quietly, not from weakness, just shock. Was I really the villain now, for wanting something that was mine? The next day, I texted them. I'm sorry it got heated. Can we talk calmly? Hours passed. Then a reply. We need time to process your choices. Not our choices. Yours. I called twice. Mom answered but barely spoke. Dad refused to come to the phone. Samantha didn't answer at all, but her Instagram lit up. Quotes about toxic family and people who pretend to care. She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. Everyone knew who she meant, and suddenly I wasn't just alone. I was the enemy. I tried to move on. I painted the living room, planted flowers out front, hung curtains I'd sewn myself. The house started to feel warm again, like maybe I could still belong here, even without them. Then came the letter. Plain envelope, law firm, return address. I thought it was junk. It wasn't. Inside, a formal complaint. Richard and Margaret Walker. My parents were suing me, claiming I'd broken a verbal family agreement, that my house was meant for both daughters, that past gifts were actually investments. My hands shook. I read it 3 times. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was legal war. I sat on the bathroom floor, heart racing, breath shallow. Was I having a heart attack? No. Just my first panic attack and the start of something far worse. I stayed on that floor for 20 minutes, counting tiles, trying to breathe, trying to not fall apart. The next day at work, I was off, distracted, numb, nearly gave the wrong meds to a patient. My friend Karen caught it in time. She pulled me aside. Ellie, what's going on? I told her everything. The dinner, the silence, the lawsuit. She didn't blink. Didn't judge, just said, you need a lawyer, a real one. She gave me a number, Linda Bryce, her sister's divorce attorney. Tough, sharp, fair. The next morning, I called in sick, drove to a small office in an old brick house, sat across from a woman in her 50s with calm eyes and no sugarcoating. She read the letter, listened, then looked at me and said, legally, this case is garbage, but you still have to fight it. Linda didn't waste time. Verbal agreements mean nothing without proof, she said. And gifts, they're gifts unless you signed otherwise. I felt a small wave of relief, but it didn't last. You'll still need to respond formally, she warned. Discovery comes next. Be ready for anything. So I gathered everything, bank statements, texts, emails, every receipt, every dollar I ever repaid. Then came the real punch. Messages between my parents and Samantha dug up through discovery. They'd been planning this for months. Ellie's house hunting my mom had texted. We need to talk before she buys anything, Dad replied. She's always known her responsibility to family. That word hit like ice. Responsibility, not love, not pride, not care. Samantha's message came next. Did you tell her I'm moving in yet? She needs to understand that's the expectation. They didn't ask. They assumed. And now they were taking it by force. The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. Samantha wasn't just figuring things out. She was drowning in debt. 3 credit cards maxed out. Thousands owed. Most of it from online gambling. She'd even been evicted recently. I hadn't known she moved out. Apparently, the house plan was her backup. Linda looked through the documents. They're using the court system to clean up her mess, she said. It's not rare, but it's never right. I sat there numb. I'd worked my body and soul for this house, and now it was just leverage. To them, my home wasn't a home. It was a solution, a bailout for choices that weren't mine, for consequences they refused to let her face. I was no longer just their daughter. I was the exit plan. And the worst part, they didn't even ask. The first court date came fast, a preliminary hearing. No witnesses yet, just presence, statements, intention. Walking into that courtroom, seeing my parents on the other side, didn't feel real. Dad stared straight ahead. Mom avoided my eyes. Samantha smiled tight, smug. Their lawyer spoke first. Polished, confident. Unwritten family agreement, mutual understanding, artistic daughter needing support. Judge Harris, silver hair and sharp eyes, wasn't impressed. You have no written proof. Once in families, their lawyer said, we often rely on trust. She adjusted her glasses. This court relies on evidence, not assumption. Then came her ruling, mediation, mandatory. Before any trial, 30 days to sit down with a court-appointed mediator. Linda leaned in and whispered, expected. We'll go in prepared. I nodded. But my hands were shaking, because deep down I knew this wasn't about resolution. It was about pressure. The mediation took place in a plain county building. No judge, no robes, just a table, chairs, and old carpet. The mediator, Mr. Phillips, had kind eyes, gentle voice, former family court judge. He explained the process. No one wins here unless you agree. Dad went first. We believe Eleanor should add Samantha to the deed or sell the house and split it into 2 smaller properties. I stared at him. I'd owned the house for 2 months, had already started renovations. They wanted to tear it apart. Mr. Phillips turned to me. What would you consider fair? I breathed in slow. I'll offer to help Samantha with first and last month's rent. A fresh start, that's all. Samantha snapped. That's insulting. I need security, not scraps. My voice tightened. Then earn it. Like everyone else. Mr. Phillips raised his hand, but the damage was already done. Samantha stood up, hands shaking, eyes blazing. You've always hated me, she snapped. Just admit it. No, I said quietly. I just stopped letting you use me. Mr. Phillips tried again. Let's stay productive. But it was too late. Keep your stupid house, Samantha shouted. I don't want anything from you, she stormed out. The door slammed behind her. Silence followed. My parents didn't apologize, didn't speak. Finally, Mom said softly, maybe we should continue this another day. Mr. Phillips sighed. I'll mark this mediation as unsuccessful. Outside in the parking lot, I saw Samantha again, smoking, laughing on her phone. Not broken, not ashamed. She looked at me just for a second. And I saw it. That look, not defeat, not retreat, but determination. This wasn't over, not even close. The final court date arrived. Heavy air, cold room, my hands wouldn't stop sweating. My heart felt numb. This was it. Either they'd take my house or the fight would end here. We sat on opposite sides, just feet apart, but the distance felt like a lifetime. Judge Harris entered. We all stood. Then came the routine opening statements, sworn testimonies. Their lawyer painted me cold, calculated. A successful daughter who broke a promise to her struggling sister. Dad spoke next. We supported her for years, with the understanding this house would help both daughters. Mom cried, showed childhood photos, me helping Sam with homework. We always taught them to share. Then came Samantha, soft voice, dabbing her eyes. Ellie told me back in high school, when I get a house, you'll always have a place in it. She looked straight at me. I didn't recognize her anymore. Then it was our turn. Linda stood calm and steady. What we've heard is a story, not a contract. She laid out the facts. No written agreement. No conditions on any money given. No proof of shared ownership. Then she called me to the stand. I walked up slowly, hands cold, voice steady somehow. I showed everything: spreadsheets, pay stubs, loan records, 12 years of budgeting, every shift logged. I wasn't lucky. I was disciplined, relentless, alone in every step. Linda continued. Ellie offered her sister job leads, resume, help, even contacts. All declined. Then she brought out the text. The one Samantha didn't know we had. Don't worry, she'd written to a friend. Mom and Dad will make Ellie cave. She always gives in eventually. The courtroom fell quiet. Even Samantha froze. And for the first time, I saw doubt in the judge's eyes. Linda wasn't done. She handed over bank statements. Clear. Dated. Undeniable. 3 months before the lawsuit, my parents refinanced their home, took out $50,000, and then $31,000 was wired to Samantha. Quietly, without mention. Just gone. Linda looked at the judge. They had the means to help her directly. They chose instead to pursue my client's home. Judge Harris frowned. Mr. Brennan, were these transactions disclosed? Their lawyer hesitated. They seemed unrelated to the case. The judge cut him off. I'll decide what's relevant, counselor. Then it happened. Samantha stood up, voice shaky, real this time. It wasn't their fault, she blurted out. I needed the money. I told them to do it, to pressure Ellie. I just needed somewhere to go. Mom tried to hush her, but it was too late. The cracks had split open. The truth had spilled out. The judge called a recess. 15 minutes, I sat still, barely breathing. Linda whispered, that outburst may have just saved us. I nodded, but didn't hope. Not yet. When we returned, Judge Harris looked firm, not angry, not soft, just clear. After reviewing all evidence, she began, this court finds no legal basis for the plaintiff's claim. My ears rang. There is no proof of agreement, verbal or written, that Ms. Walker owed her family any portion of this property. Then came the last blow. The defendant's request for legal fees is granted. The plaintiffs will reimburse all reasonable expenses. Samantha gasped. Mom's face crumbled. Dad stared at the floor. Linda touched my arm. It's over. But as I looked across the courtroom at the people who raised me, I wondered what exactly I had won, and what I'd just lost forever. I sat in my car for nearly an hour after the ruling, keys in hand, engine off, just still. I'd kept my house. I'd won, but it didn't feel like winning. No celebration, no joy, just a quiet ache where my family used to be. My phone buzzed. Karen, how did it go? Need company, I replied. Won the case. Could use a friend. That night, she brought Thai food and wine. We ate on moving boxes. Talked, laughed a little. I told her everything. She said, you did nothing wrong. They did this, not you. I nodded, but part of me still wondered, could I have done something different, something softer, kinder? Then I remembered their faces. Their silence, their choice to go to war, and I realized I hadn't broken the family. I just stopped carrying it alone. The next morning, an email from Linda did the subject line. Congratulations! Inside paperwork, legal fees, final steps. It felt official, but also distant, like reading about someone else's life. I spent that weekend unpacking the last boxes, folding sweaters, hanging photos, trying to make the house feel mine again, and slowly, room by room, it started to shift. The living room wasn't a battleground anymore. The kitchen wasn't stained with courtroom dread. They were just spaces. Quiet, safe. I planted herbs in the windowsill, hung fairy lights on the porch, adopted a dog, a golden retriever mix named Chance. Gentle, steady, always close. The silence of the house felt less like emptiness and more like peace. It would take time, but I wasn't rebuilding for them anymore. I was rebuilding for me. 2 weeks after the hearing, someone knocked on my door. I opened it, and there he was, my father. He looked smaller somehow, older, tired. Can I come in? His voice was quiet, unsure. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in the living room, the same space where he once called me selfish. He looked around. You've done a lot. The house looks good. I nodded, waited. Then he sighed. Ellie, I owe you an apology. We were wrong. All of it. I didn't respond. Not yet. Sam came to us in a panic, he said. She lied. Said it was business debt. Said you'd promised to help. I stared at the floor. My heart didn't soften, but it cracked just a little. He finished. We panicked, but it was never your job to fix her. For once he was right. He sat there wringing his hands like he didn't know what to do with them. We're sending a check to your lawyer, he said, to cover all the fees. It's the least we can do. I nodded but didn't smile. Part of me wanted to forgive, to start over. Another part whispered, too late. Where's Mom? I asked. She's processing, he said. And Samantha's in treatment. 30 days, then outpatient therapy. I let the words hang in the air. I didn't trust them yet, but I didn't slam the door either. After he left, I sat on the porch with Chance, watched the light shift across the yard. I wanted to believe him. I wanted healing. But forgiveness isn't instant. It doesn't come with one visit or one check, especially when what you lost wasn't money, but trust. A week later, I got a text from Mom. Can we meet just coffee? I agreed, but only at a neutral cafe. Not their house, not mine. She arrived looking older. Makeup thinner, eyes swollen, less polished, more real. Before sitting down, she said it. I'm sorry, we should never have taken you to court. I waited. She explained everything. Samantha had shown them doctored texts, made it seem like I promised to help, then changed my mind. I should have asked you directly, she whispered, but I was scared. And I wanted to believe her. I nodded slowly, but didn't reach for her hand. Can you ever forgive us? She asked, eyes full. I looked at my coffee, then at her. Maybe, but not now. This isn't something I just get over. And for once she didn't argue. We parted with a hug, brief, awkward, unsure. She asked if she could see the house again someday. I said maybe, just not yet. And I meant it. After that, our relationship entered a new phase. Cautious, limited, but not broken. We spoke by phone, brief calls, light conversation. No mention of Samantha unless I asked. No talk of money, ever. I set boundaries, and for once, they respected them. Meanwhile, I leaned into friendships. Karen and I started weekly dinners. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, taught me how to grow tomatoes. Work felt steady again. Jordan, my supervisor, invited me to Sunday barbecues with his family. I wasn't just healing, I was expanding. This wasn't the life my family had planned for me. It was the one I finally chose for myself. I started therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I needed help rebuilding from the inside out. Dr. Evans was calm, soft-spoken, but never vague. She listened, asked, paused. What you're feeling, she said, is grief, not just over what happened, but over what you thought your family was. That landed deep. I talked about the courtroom, the silence after, the years of being the strong one. She helped me see it clearly. My parents hadn't betrayed a perfect daughter. They'd upheld a pattern. Sam got rescue. I got responsibility. And in trying to fix her, they nearly broke me. But I didn't let them. Each session helped me breathe easier, helped me sleep through the night again, helped me believe that peace wasn't something I had to earn, just something I could finally allow. 6 months after the court case, I applied for a new role, nursing education coordinator. Less chaos, more purpose. I got it. I finally had energy for something outside survival. Back home, I started transforming the space. Repainted every room. Soft sage in the living room, warm gold in the kitchen, replaced old fixtures, hung shelves for cookbooks, framed photos of friends not family. I turned the smallest bedroom into a reading nook, window seat, thick cushions, peace. In the backyard, I planted perennials, flowers that would return year after year, just like I planned to. This house, once a battlefield, was becoming a home, not because anyone approved of it, not because I had to prove I deserved it, but because I loved it, because it reflected me. Every inch of it was now rooted in my choice, not their expectation. Samantha disappeared from my life. No calls, no messages, Not even a whisper through mom, but I still felt her. In memories, in photos packed away, in the silence that used to hold her name. Through mom, I heard she finished treatment, got a job at a community arts center, started attending Gamblers Anonymous. That was it. No apology, no explanation, and I wasn't ready to reach out. Not yet. Maybe not ever. With my parents, I kept the line open barely. We met for lunch now and then. Neutral places. Short conversations. They never asked about the house. Never pushed past my boundaries. It was civil, not warm. And that was okay, because I'd stopped trying to fix what was broken. I was finally learning how to live with the cracks and still grow. 1 year after the lawsuit, I hosted my first real gathering. Nothing fancy, just burgers, board games, and people who showed up for me. Karen brought wine. Jordan brought his kids. Neighbors came with homemade pie. We sat on the porch, laughed under string lights, played cards on the kitchen counter like nothing had ever been broken. And maybe for that night, nothing was. As I looked around, I saw something I hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. Not because we shared blood, but because we shared presence, choice, care. That night, I didn't think about courtrooms or closed doors. I thought about joy, about resilience, about this home I'd rebuilt with my own hands and filled with my own people. No one asked for anything. No one needed saving. We were just together. And that was more than enough. On the 1-year anniversary of owning my home, I took the day off. No emails, no chores, just time to breathe, reflect, feel. I walked through each room, touched the walls I painted, ran my fingers across the bookshelves now filled with stories I chose. In the kitchen, butcher block counters I installed myself. In the reading nook, sunlight pouring onto a quilt I found at a local market. Photos lined the hallway, smiles that weren't perfect but real, chosen. I brewed fresh coffee, sat on the porch with chance at my feet, watched the maple leaves stir in the wind, and for the first time, I didn't think of what I lost. I thought of what I'd built. Peace, boundaries, a life that felt like mine. Not out of rebellion, but out of truth. Simple, quiet, whole. In therapy that week, I shared how calm the anniversary felt. Dr. Evans smiled. That calm means you're no longer surviving, you're living. We talked about childhood, patterns I'd missed, assumptions I'd accepted. You were cast as the capable one, she said. And because you could carry more, they gave you less. I nodded. It made sense now. My achievements weren't praised, they were expected. Samantha's smallest effort was celebrated like magic. That imbalance didn't begin with the lawsuit, she said. It just exposed it. Her words stayed with me. It wasn't just about the house. It never was. It was about how I'd been trained to give, to cope, to stay silent, while others were allowed to need. And somewhere along the way, I stopped asking for space, for thanks, for fairness. Until now. With Dr. Evans's help, I began setting firmer terms. No more vague forgiveness, no more quiet tolerance. If I was rebuilding with my parents, it would be on my rules. We could talk about work friends' books. Not money, not Samantha. They tested it once. Over lunch, Mom asked about my investments. I smiled gently. I don't talk finances anymore. She frowned. I'm just trying to be involved. You can be, I said, just not in that part of my life. She went quiet. But she didn't push again. Dad surprisingly adapted faster. You've earned the right to set your own terms, he told me one afternoon. It felt strange being heard without defending myself. Strange, but right. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to be the good daughter. I was just being me. And that was finally enough. Almost 2 years passed. No word from Samantha. Until a Saturday morning at the downtown farmer's market. I was picking tomatoes when I heard Ellie. I turned. There she was. Hair tied back, plain sweater, no drama. We stood awkwardly, among flowers and bread and strangers. Hi, I said. I'm working now, she offered. Full-time at the arts center, teaching kids classes, admin work too. I nodded. That's good. Then she paused, lowered her voice. I'm sorry for everything. The house, the lawsuit, the lies. I looked at her, really looked. She meant it maybe not fully, but more than ever before. Thank you for saying that, I replied. Not, I forgive you, but something real. Then she asked softly, is the house nice? I smiled. Yeah, it is. We parted with a half hug, awkward, hesitant, but not cold. She said, let's catch up sometime. I nodded. We both knew. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. Still, something inside me felt lighter. Not healed, but closed. A chapter gently shut instead of slammed. Back home, I watched Chance nap in the sun, ran my hand along the bookshelf, poured tea into my favorite mug, and for the first time, Samantha's name didn't bring a knot to my chest. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd stopped carrying the weight. That afternoon, I took a walk through the garden. Lavender blooming, tomatoes ripening, life returning in cycles. Some things don't come back. Some ties stay loose. But growth always finds a way. In the months that followed, my idea of family changed. Not erased, but reshaped. Karen and her husband invited me for every holiday. Mrs. Chen shared her dumpling recipes and helped me prune the roses. Jordan and his wife became my emergency contacts, not out of obligation, but trust, mutual care. These people didn't want things from me. They wanted me. No court filings, no hidden expectations, just space to show up as I am. I realize family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up when everything breaks. And slowly, the emptiness my parents left was filled with presence. Not perfect, but real. Not dramatic, but deeply safe. I hadn't lost family. I'd found it on my own terms. I started dating again. Nothing serious at first. Coffee shops, museum walks, conversations without pressure. Then I met Mark, a high school history teacher with kind eyes and a quiet, steady way of listening. On our third date, I told him the story, not all at once, but the truth. The house, the lawsuit, the silence afterward. He didn't flinch, didn't pity, just said, that must have hurt like hell. Thanks for trusting me with it. He didn't offer solutions. He offered space. Later, when he first saw the house, he paused at the doorway. You built this, I nodded. Every piece. It's beautiful, he said, and I'm honored to be here. And I realized letting someone in didn't mean losing myself. Not anymore. Not here. 2.5 years later, I can finally say it. I'm at peace. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. More than I ever imagined. But I survived it. And more than that, I grew. I learned that no can be an act of love toward yourself. That setting boundaries doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. That true love, family, friends, partners doesn't come with conditions. Or debt disguised as duty, and that a home isn't just wood and stone, it's where you are safe, respected, whole. Some people never gave me that, so I gave it to myself, brick by brick. Room by room. This house, the one they tried to take, became more than shelter. It became a symbol of everything I refused to give up. Especially me. If you've always been the strong one, the responsible one, you know the quiet exhaustion that comes with being expected to carry everything. The way people assume you don't need help because you never ask for it. The way your wins are brushed off and your boundaries are questioned. I used to think that made me dependable. Now I know it made me invisible. Being strong doesn't mean you owe everyone your life. It doesn't mean you are the backup plan for someone else's mess. I wish I had learned that sooner, but I'm grateful I learned it at all. So if this sounds like your story, if you've been told you're fine while others fall apart, you're not selfish for choosing yourself. You're not cruel for wanting peace. And you are absolutely allowed to keep what you've earned. I used to believe my value came from giving, from staying quiet, from holding it all together. But healing taught me something else. Your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice. It's measured by how honestly you live, by how gently you treat yourself when no one else is watching. I don't need to earn rest. I don't need to prove I'm good by bleeding for others. Love isn't conditional. Support shouldn't be transactional. Family should never feel like an unpaid debt. I set boundaries not to push people away, but to protect what I'm building. A life of calm, of respect, of real connection. And if that means disappointing those who only love me when I gave, then so be it. Because I'm done living on terms that weren't mine. Home isn't walls and furniture. It's not the mortgage or the paint color. It's how you breathe when you walk in. It's the silence that soothes, not the one that punishes. It's the freedom to exist without earning your space. This house was once a battlefield, a symbol of betrayal, a courtroom exhibit. Now it's soft mornings with coffee, chants curled up at my feet, dinner with friends around a table I chose. It's shelves filled with my stories, not someone else's expectations. It's laughter, sometimes solitude, always safety. I didn't just protect this house. I reclaimed it, room by room, boundary by boundary. And in doing that, I found something bigger than victory. I found what I was never given, a place where I belonged because I said so, because I finally believed I deserved to. If you've ever felt guilty for choosing peace over people for saying no when they expected yes, this story is yours too. If you've been called cold for setting boundaries or selfish for keeping what you earned, you're not alone. I thought love meant giving until I had nothing left. Now I know love that costs your dignity isn't love at all. You deserve a life where your presence isn't payment, where your strength isn't exploited, where your voice doesn't shake when you say, "That's mine." So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that was never yours to carry? And if this story helped you feel seen, heard, or simply less alone, leave a comment. Share your moment. Because healing is personal, but it's never lonely when we speak it out loud. Thank you for listening to mine. And if this story touched something in you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories, more healing, and more reminders that you are not alone. See you in the next one.